Hello. Welcome, everyone, for joining us right through to the very end. I think it's always testament to the quality of the crowd when they stick through the whole program. So thank you so much for being here. And also thank you to my esteemed panelists for joining me today to talk about SportFi and basically the future of Web3 in sport. So we have a lot of material to cover because, of course, 2021 was a really major year for sport partnerships in Web3. We've learned a lot of lessons since then, so we're going to unpack a bit, quite a bit of information. But I want to start with the actual history. So we're going to go basically straight to Max. Because Chili's was actually founded in 2018. So that was 3 years prior to this huge sport partnerships boom that we saw within the Web3 space. So what was the opportunity that you saw so early on that sort of paved the way for this boom to actually happen a couple years after?
No, thanks. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the past, but back then there wasn't this idea. It was, before the kind of hype cycle of NFTs first came about, or NFTs were even broadly known. We were friends with the CryptoKitties folks before they became Dapper Labs, but this notion of how you can use crypto to create, connect, and monetize a community or create a membership didn't exist, at least in the mainstream. And at the same time, Alex and I weren't sports people, but we noticed looking around in sports and esports as well that there wasn't really a proliferation of global membership experiences, ways for a team, a large brand to buy in tens of millions of fans and do so in a commercially viable way and in a way where you can easily identify them and create kind of a composable experience. So I think we were very naive when we thought, okay, maybe let's just build it. Let's see if this market gap exists, and we kind of assumed that, we'd go into the offices of Barca and PSG, and they'd laugh us out the door quickly and say, well, no, of course it doesn't exist because it hasn't worked, and we already tried. But they didn't try, so we had this, small gap to see, okay, what would happen if you almost created a centralized DAO, ecosystem for a team, where owning a token lets you connect with them and lets you influence them in whatever way the team allowed, and let's see what you could build from there.
It was almost slightly the old adage of if they build, or if you build, they will come, and sort of seeing who came knocking. And I want to bring the conversation to Jordi, because I would love to understand that when FC Barcelona first entered into this Web3 world, what was the rationale behind it? What kind of went into the analysis of this is something worthwhile, this is something we should pursue?
Let me start with the following, because FC Barcelona is I would say, it's my club, but it's a special brand in many sense. And one sense is that the club belongs to the members. So we have 150,000 members, and they are the owners of the club. So this means that we were already like a physical DAO, or we are like a physical DAO. We have elections, we have assemblies, referendums, many of them that are already, let's say, traced by blockchain technologies. And we think that blockchain technologies, Web3, are the right tool to get closer to our fans all over the world, because we have our members that basically they are local, they are from Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain, but we have around 400 million fans registered in social networks, fans that we have all over the world, and we should provide them with digital products and experiences because they cannot come to Barcelona. So the way for providing them these products, these services, is obviously blockchain technologies, because we have ownership, traceability, ownership of digital assets, and we think is the right tool. So we started a couple of years ago with, let's say, with NFTs, and we did something like we auctioned an NFT of an iconic player of us, Johan Cruyff, in Sotheby's in New York, and then we went to Alexia Putellas, which is the best women player in the world for 2 years in a row. And for us, the messages are important. So in this case, it was about woman empowerment in sports, but also in technology. And we like to do these kind of things that they have to do with the right messages and being close to our fans all over the world.
So it was sort of tapping into the fact that FC Barcelona's community are so international, and this was a channel for you to be able to make sure that everyone felt that they could participate in anything that FC Barcelona was up to. Is that right?
That's the idea. I mean, we are just constructing this space. So this means that we are step by step testing things. For us, reputation is super important. So this means that we do, let's say, tests with high level standards, high standards, and going to the market in this way. We did something that we think is super important in this community. We created the official FC Barcelona Discord channel, because Discord is a way to create community, is a way to get closer to the previous talk. People was talking about gamers, students, education, and this community is in Discord. It's super important for us, and from this we plan to grow, and we plan to be closer to these fans all over the world.
Wonderful. And PSG is also knee-deep in all kinds of Web3 experimentation and innovation. And firstly, congratulations on becoming a Chili's validator. I saw that hit the headlines very recently. So my question for you is essentially, how has the journey evolved from the start? To go from PSG's initial foray into the Web3 space to now establishing itself as a validator, and sort of what was the thinking process each step of the way?
So I think everything develops in phases, right? And we like to be first, and we were one of the first ones with you guys at Chili's and Socios. And I think as things mature, so does we as a club. And I think for us it was, an easy call saying, hey, what have we learned? How can we engage more with all of our fans? And some love tokenization, and some love blockchain, and some love physical things. And so we're simply engaging different fans with what they like. And I think everybody here asked me, what's next? And one of the things that is next is, I think for all brands and all clubs, we do a lot of brand communication. And I think what's next is we do brand engagement. We integrate and activate, and we partner up. And I think almost like the fan tokens is a front-end engagement, Chili's is the infrastructure, right? Almost like a back-end engagement. And if you look at it as a solution space, I think personally what's next for clubs and brands is ecosystem to ecosystem, meaning I think a lot of brands and clubs has been very siloed, and we want to break that up. And the way we want to do this is open up our ecosystem of players and partners, Chili's and Socios, and we also have this great example with Brilliant Crypto, where we're engaging in-game assets with an on-chain game. And so I think I'd love to do collaborations between all of us, and I think that's a part of what next. Ecosystem, opening up, engaging, start jamming, iterating, exploring with different fan groups and customer groups, right? So it's always easy, and for us to run the node is, loving blockchain and tokenization. It's a great way to give back and reuse and create the sustainability flow that this is one part of. I think when we spoke before, Max, fan loyalty and customer loyalty also means that we should be loyal to them, not only them being loyal to us. And I think that's the difference between a customer, which is a transactional thing, versus fans that you started this great journey on. How do we do fans on-chain with tokenized assets? What's next? And we're all learning, right? And this is one of those next steps, I think. Yeah.
So it's a major signal of PSG's deeper commitment to this technology. And as you mentioned, it's not just what this can enable for, the PSG community and all of, even just stakeholders who are heavily vested in this space, but it's the opportunity to develop much more integrated experiences that perhaps previously just weren't possible without this sort of technology. And Max, I want to use that to bring the conversation back to you. And obviously, between 2018 and 2024, where we sit now, the value proposition has become clearer and clearer for why brands, or why sports teams in particular, and sports brands should be participating in this space. So what was it like onboarding at the very beginning? How did you convince these teams that they should participate? And what's it like now? Has the equation flipped where they start to seek you out, or what does it look like?
Sure. I hope I don't take too long on this question. The first bit is a bit easy to answer because in 2018, Chili's and Socios, I think, is a bit unique, along with a select group of other kind of operators in the space where we interface with legacy brands and clubs a lot, to the point where, the larger part of our business model relies on their buy-in and their green lights than the tech, right? We're not insular in that way or, fully crypto native. And in 2018, that was a very simple equation just by virtue of the fact that when we went to PSG, when we went to Barca and started, pitching this idea of, and it was, in fairness, inspired by, it's called Socios for a reason, of putting this membership experience on chain, not in terms of ownership of the club, but just in terms of, this scalable membership of the team, and that everyone would have a token and they would be able to influence decisions and they would be on a reward spectrum and they would gain recognition. No one knew what the hell we were talking about. They did when we talked about, the membership elements, but once we started talking about tokens and that it would be like a centralized DAO and it was built on a chain that we made, but that chain was private, everyone's eyes kind of glazed over.
And I'm sure there was also just the element of what do you mean giving power and say to our community rather than us dictating the direction?
Well, there was, but there was also this almost feeling like you were allowed to get away with a lot more because you come in with a very simple proposition, right? Sports teams, historically, one of their major revenue sources is their billboards and legitimizers for brands, right? If I put my brand next to Barca, there's no greater endorsement for the value of my brand than putting it up against the institution that is Barca or PSG. And, over, I think, decades, generations of business, that's how they were conditioned to think. So when we came in and gave our pitch, I think the part of the pitch that was really heard was, we'll give you money for the IP rights, and we're going to feed in some marketing value to your marketing teams. And I don't think they cared because they didn't understood too much of the rest. But that was enough, right? At that point, there was no greater discussion about what does it mean that when you mint a token, it's perennial? What is it, how do exit agreements look like if we don't see eye to eye? How does this evolve in the future? We just kind of got the green light because they wanted to try something that sounded, innovative and was part of the narrative of kind of crypto being on the up and up. And it's not the case now, right? Now, some clubs more than others. I think these guys will agree. They're both at the forefront of this, but many of the larger sports brands in the world are a lot more literate on a deep level of what crypto can bring them and what it means and what role we should be playing. So whereas 6 years ago we came in and we were just another faceless check in a sense, right, to help the success of the club, that's not how they look at it anymore for many reasons. One, because of the last cycle, which I think taught a lot of sports teams that there's reputational risk in crypto if you take money from the wrong people or a project doesn't work out. But I think PAR being at PSG is a great example. I think teams are starting to understand that there's probably a commercial value and a fan engagement value and a network effect value here that outweighs the fact that we're going to make 500K, 1 million, whatever the check is that we're getting from these companies in order to give them our IP. And that makes it a lot more complicated, right? Because now when we talk to Barca and to PSG, we're talking in terms of realizing, fan value, network effect, and loyalty, and how can we do this in an economically sustainable way for the club. And that makes for longer, more complicated meetings, which it's a good thing, but it's a very, very slow process, right?
Right, so it kind of points back to an earlier point, which was that it starts off as a bit more of a transactional relationship, and it's evolved more into a deeper-rooted partnership, which is why essentially, you've all committed to the long game of trying to work together to make sure that the tech can stand up for whatever you want it or need it to do. And Jordi, I want to bring the conversation back to you again and essentially ask, there was so much marketing power that originally came with this huge wave of sports and brands and Web3 partnerships. But what was the value that, Barcelona really wanted to deliver through its Web3?
That's important. I mean, I would say that Value. What does it mean, value? And value means many things. It's not only about money. Money is the last thing. For us, value is we're a club that is not a company. So we don't have to, let's say, earn money. It's not our goal as a company. Because we are not a company, it belongs to the clubs. We are a sports club. What we want is generate values that are aligned with our members, with the owners. And you know that we like to say that we have values. We are more than a club, and they have to do with democracy, they have to do with women, they have to do with diversity, they have to do with many things. So I think at the end, if we do things right, everything will be good for everyone. What do I mean with this? NFTs, for instance, the fact that you, with NFTs, provide ownership of the digital assets to the people, it means that they could create, they could collaborate. If they are in a metaverse, they could sell, they could trade, and this means that the economics is split into the brand and the user and the fan, and this is right. This is what we are looking for. And I think this roadmap that we want to do that comes from NFTs, utility tokens with Sotheby's.com, and all our partnerships with plastics that had to do with supporting projects that have to do with recycling in developing countries. All these things is like a roadmap that starts with the NFTs, but will finish with the metaverse. And the metaverse for us is, you know, that we are remodeling our stadium, but not only the stadium, an arena for basketball, for handball, the museum, everything. And we have fans that will enjoy this physically in Barcelona, but we want that everyone in the world enjoys this, but as it was said before, it could be done in a way that they collaborate, they build things, and they build to earn, they build to play, and they enjoy doing this with us. So that's the mid-long-term goal of this.
So essentially, there's a much more integrated universe for people to interact within. And I think when it comes back to this notion of community, it's to reflect that not only do we all love the same team, but we also share a lot of fundamental values. And it's being able to use Web3 to demonstrate what those values are and find other means of, I guess, diversifying the experiences that a sports club can deliver beyond just the game and the passion for the players. And Bahar, you know, as PSG has continued to innovate within this space and is now officially a Chili's validator, where do you see, you know, this world of SportFi going? Like, what do you want to see come next, or where do you think a lot more investment should be taking place?
We got a disco going on here, I hear. Yeah, so I think what's next for the club is we want to work closer and deeper with our partners. We want to integrate and have a roadmap together with them moving forward, and learn and iterate, trying to figure that one out. And I think that's a lot more work and different than people think, coming from a club perspective or brand perspective, I think. And maybe you have different experiences, but I think that's one of the things. I think you talk about community, we talk about fans, and you know they're a bit of the same thing, right? Two different words, and I think. The technology, unless you like tech, no one really cares. I like tech, so for me it has its own purpose. But for the massive fan base that we have, hundreds of millions of fans, they want to have more beautiful experiences, easier, more fun. They want to be interacted with, engaged with, created with, staking on our node to get utilities or perks that you don't get if you're not, right? And so I think doing more of what we do is one thing, but I also think all clubs maybe have different positions. We're a young club, we have a young base. And so of course we need to learn what and how we do that, and a part of innovation I think for all clubs is outside. And so you need to find the right partners and jam with and jam more with and closer, right? And I think what's next is to find ways to capture behavior. Customer is transactional, right? Behavior is what you do and what you love. when you don't pay, let's say, before, during, in between transactions, right? So we talk about CRM systems, but we don't have a fan engagement system or a fan love system, whatever you want to call that. And to build that direct connection, not going through a Web2 platform where we don't own the fans, we don't have no data on the fans. They're not in our control. We want to take that away and collapse that process and start reaching out, listening and jamming with the likes of you, and listen and iterate with our, innovation partners really, and then offer something new and say, hey, how do you feel? What do you think? And then just play repeat on stuff like that. And yeah.
I think that's what's interesting about so many brands that have entered the Web3 space well beyond sport, which is the fact that when you start directly engaging with communities, for example, via a Discord channel, you are leveling the grounds for communication. You are giving people direct access to speaking to the very people who are key decision makers in many ways. And that active conversation didn't really exist before. You sort of, as a fan or as a member of a community, you were just on the receiving end of whatever the higher-ups decided to do. So bringing this decision-making much more to the community level was a very novel experience for most communities. But it begs the question of, there was so much marketing impact that were created from this first batch of sport and Web3 partnerships. But where do we go from here? And this is a question that's open to all of you. Where do we go beyond the marketing impact that we can generate and, the fan engagement? Because attention and eyeballs and participation is one thing, but how that evolves the relationship is another. So what will that look like in the future?
Okay, so I think if you want to go beyond marketing, what is very important is, and we did it in FC Barcelona, we created, for instance, a vehicle, and that is called Barça Vision, where many people in the club is involved. Barça Vision is devoted to, let's say, from our digital assets to create NFTs, utility tokens, metaverse, many things. There's full-time people working on this. Holger Bidna, Anna Solé, here in the audience, myself, but many people in the club, in communication department, Marina Yeves, in marketing, in legal, in finances, involved. If the clubs, they are not involved in creating content, then it's like we license, it's a marketing, and it's no more than this. So I think the clubs, the brands, should be really involved in defining the roadmap together with the experts, the partners like Socios.com, Wool of Women, and many others.
Max, would you like to add?
No, I think just to bookend a bit what Par had said as well. I think there's been, over the past 3 years, without sounding too harsh, an epidemic of gimmickry in crypto and non-crypto brands, right? And marketing promises of disruption and integration and innovation, when I think a lot of companies in the Web3 space didn't come at that cynically. It wasn't their plan for that to end up as a gimmick or things to fall flat. I think a lot of times they ran into red tape because they were seen as marketing dollars, and people have had this notion that, as a club or as an organization, I can do a Web3 initiative in tandem with my legacy business, things on the corporate side. But they don't need to overlap because that's messy and that's really difficult. So we'll have the Web3 side and the normal side. But that it's inherently misunderstanding what the value of Web3 technology is, because its value only resides in, less so in the adoption of users and more so in the adoption of the Barças and PSGs of the world. Because even if we're an innovation provider, if we're in a position where we literally have to ask permission for everything and get denied everything, we're not going to innovate anything. And we're going to be forced to go into, cynical narratives about what we're doing, because, it's embarrassing to just say, no, we're failing, and you can't say, well, it's just, really difficult, and the partner doesn't want to do it right now. I think we're finally in a position where there's a sea change that's happening where that's not the case. I think it's exactly what Par was speaking about, and it's happening at PSG. And obviously, we're really excited that a huge symptom of that is, them agreeing to become a validator on our chain and actually interacting at a protocol level with their own fan token, figuring out a way to, evolve utility and experience through that, because it puts us as an operator in a position where, you know, we're not a customer anymore. You know, we talk so much about, you know, fans not being customers, but it feels nice to not feel like you're a customer of the club as well, right? Which I think a lot of times is the case, but instead we feel like business partners, we feel like innovation partners, because we both have skin in the game, we both have exposure to the success, and most importantly, they're ready to start disrupting and touching, you know, the aspects of, you know, the football business that are integral to them, not just saying, here's, you know, PSG and here's Barca. Go on the outside and do something that looks like it touches it, but it doesn't.
What was the moment, though, that really flipped the switch?
I don't think you can nail down a single moment. I think specific to us, we've been lucky enough that we've just survived in the space for so long, you know, at least in Web3 terms for so long, since 2018, where I think we've had a chance to prove the commercial sustainability and the technical sustainability of what we're doing, to a point where, you know, and slowly, step by step, has gotten Barca and PSG and other, you know, teams of that ilk more and more comfortable. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't magically just, you know, get the trust of PSG to do something experimental with their brand. It happens over a course of years.
And Par, would you say, in your mind, was there any particular moment where stakeholder buy-in just became less of an obstacle, or red tape fell away a little bit?
I think the educational or defrosting process, whatever you want to call that, has to be ongoing all the time. One, because it is absolutely needed. Two, the goalpost keeps moving. And when it comes to the relationship and partnership with Chili's and Socios, coming from this space, this is an absolute, I mean, this is low-hanging fruit. So, you know, me and colleagues were pushing, these are the type of things we should do and explore, and we should engage this part of the ecosystem as well. And I think, you know, you said so many things, so it's always hard to be last on a question like that. But I do think that in one way, it's almost like the hype of all the things that was promised before, well, let's just dig down and actually execute on them now. And I think simply to do that, you got to jam, you got to be close, you got to be a partnership, and you got to see that, you know, as much as the brand innovates at PSG and the club on the pitch, a part of that innovation capability has to be with partners, right? And yeah, I mean, it's a part of the future. Not everything will be on chain all the time and right away, but eventually I do believe that everything worth value that tracking and managing and taking care of will be on chain, simply because that's the benefits that it provides, right? And so, yeah, I mean, yeah.
I like the notion of fulfilling promises that were made a while ago that we now have greater empowerment to actually complete. I mean, we're literally running out of time right now, but I do want to end on one final question, which is to simply ask each of you, what's the one thing you're most excited about in your realm of work for this year? Jordi, can we start with you?
We are building the first steps to be the metaverse, and I hope that next November we will be 125 years history. I mean, it's our anniversary of the club. So we will come back to the stadium that we are reconstructing, and I hope that this year or the beginning of next year, all the fans all over the world digitally in the metaverse, we will enjoy also this, let's say, physical remodeling of our stadium.
Wonderful. Max?
For me, it's actually outside of Socios. It's everything we're doing with Chili's. It's our first year as an open EVM-compatible Layer 1 protocol. We're growing quickly, let's say. We have a giant USP in the form of fan tokens and their associated communities from all the IPs that we work with, including these fine gentlemen. And for a long time now, we've kind of known that if we're really going to fulfill the promise of like having a critical mass of utility and value for fan tokens, it's not going to come from us building all of it or PAR building all of it. It's going to come from onboarding dozens and dozens of third-party developers and entrepreneurs and people with great ideas that find value in building something where they think, wait, I want to be able to, provide value for a PSG fan token holder or a Barca fan token holder, whether it's in discounts or token-gated content, whatever it may be. So focusing on that for the next 12 months. We even launched something called Chili's Lab specifically as an intake funnel where we can support developers with grants sometimes, with marketing support, with direct connection, and the ability to interface with these guys, because sports, as we learned, is not the easiest business to break into in order to, broker effective deals or know the right people. That's what we're most excited about, to kind of create that ecosystem for the PSG and Barca tokens that it doesn't start and end with us. It's just we're the home base for a much greater constellation of utility.
And last but not least, Par?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I couldn't really hear with the music in my ear here. What was the question?
It's just hyping you up for the party later. My main question was, what's the thing that's getting you most excited for 2024 as the market picks up?
I think that up until now, it has been for the people, you're preaching to the people in the choir, like inside the church. And I think what's next is crypto and tokenized assets and how we handle that from a legal perspective, a regulator perspective, is going to, with MiCA regulations now, going to be a lot more opened for EU and a lot of countries in the world. And I think things like that open up where people think, oh, this is okay, we can do this. And I think now there's a lot of brands, we call them Web 2 brands, they're just brands, right? And I think that everybody's waiting for who was first, and now there's been a couple of first one, right? And now I think there's a big, first group of large companies and brands coming into the ecosystem, exploring with us. And I think that's what I see when I talk to partners and sponsors coming in, that they want to explore, they want to innovate, right? And they come to us because we have these ecosystem of innovation capabilities, kind of like putting jet engines on PSG as a club moving forward. And so I'm super excited that I think all faces is looking for the iPhone moment kind of thing. And it feels like in our industry, I think coming 2-3 years, that is what it feels like. This is, we have enough tech, we got great tech partners, and now we need to start adding water, engaging the fan bases, right? And start jamming and iterating.
But it's not the name of the movie.
So we're talking a foray into the metaverse, and then scaling Chili's, the blockchain, and then essentially breaking out of this echo chamber in this universe and making this essentially match up to the potential that all of us have understood for so many years now. Well, Jordi, Max, Par, thank you so much for joining me today. All of your insights were helpful as always, and until next time. And thank you again to the audience for joining us through to the very end. Good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.